Welcome to the Six Steel City Rings podcast. My name is Ray Whiting, and with me I have Bob Quint and Zach Facetious. Guys, how you all doing today?
Great.
Good. We know that LeeAnn is out right now. She's still enjoying the life. And Matt, he is out as well. He's on assignment. But again, all is well, and we're going to make this happen. Guys, let's get right into it. Got a lot to talk about today, and this is the line. This is the lineup of our topics of what we're going to talk about today. As you well know, um, Arthur Smith being the new offensive coordinator, um, he has made some new fans of his offense, and that's something we want to discuss. Guys, again, I'm going to put you on the spot. Your thoughts on Arthur Smith's new offense, and I'm going to give you my take on it.
The
Okay.
thing about the thing about Arthur Smith's offense isn't just that it's not Matt Canada's offense. And we all love that it's not Matt Canada's offense, but what we're hearing out of the Steelers insiders is wonderful. Mark Caboli tweeted on Monday that he said, "What I hear coming out of the Steelers is the players absolutely love Arthur Smith's offense. One told me it is unreal." To hear it from the players and to hear it from Kaboli that there's excitement going on, because all we've heard out of the Steelers offense is frustration. We've heard a lack of communication, a lack of feeling like it was a real group. These guys kind of went out and played sandlot football half the time when it was successful. So to know these guys are being brought into the picture, that schemes are being discussed, that reasons are being discussed, that we'll get into this with a couple receivers later, the middle of the field, which Canada didn't seem to know existed. It's there again. We're not just gonna, be hoping for that one Fryer move pass over the middle that we saw when Rudolph was down the stretch. We're gonna see consistent use of the middle of the field, which is gonna help everything. So I'm as excited as the players.
Yeah, and if I was really struck the last couple days in interviews after the practices that the players just seem to be ecstatic. Pat Fryermuth, was joking around that, hey, I did pretty good with Ben. I might do pretty good with Russell, and this offense seems to, remember that I exist and all that good stuff. And you've got different guys just praising the offense. It just feels different. And when you hear a guy like, Caboli come on and say, hey, this looks night and day different. Remember, Caboli is the president of the Mason Rudolph fan club. So if he's coming on thinking, wow, this is a noticeable change in the offense, he was a guy who was beating the drum for Mason the last 2 years, saying, hey, he's the best quarterback in camp. Now they're not talking about the difference in the quarterbacks. They're talking about how much of a relief. And I don't think you can undersell the professionalism. Arthur Smith, he had Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill was kind of a reclamation project. He also got the tail end of Marcus Mariota in Tennessee. And he realized right away, hey, look, I like the running offense. Derrick Henry is a great tool, and I'm going to use him, and I'm going to solely use him. We're going to stop handing the ball off to anybody else. We're just going to use him. But then he recognized, hey, what does Ryan Tannehill do really well? Well, he's mobile. He was a wide receiver in the SEC. And, maybe if I boot him out to the side, cut his reads down to half the field, now he doesn't have to read the whole defense. He just has to read high, low, go. The high guys open, toss it. The low guys open, toss it. Nobody's open, get 5-6 yards, get out of bounds. And it really it made Tannehill a lot of money because he had the best 2 years of his career under Arthur Smith. And once he left, he was still okay the year after he left, but now he's on the street still looking for a job. So I'll echo Zach. I love the fact that players are excited, that they feel involved in the offense, that they feel there's a why. And going back to Matt Canada just for a second, think about what we heard, folks. My quarterbacks can't audible. They can check. You're going to tell the Hall of Fame quarterback Ben Roethlisberger he can't audible at the line of scrimmage? Well, what happened? Ben would just walk up to the line of scrimmage, call his own play anyway, walk to the sideline, and go, what are you going to do, bench me? with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky, they just weren't good enough to make it up as they go. Rudolph was at least smart enough to say, okay, hey, Pickens is one-on-one. I'm going to toss it down the field and see what happens. And that was really the difference why Mason succeeded and Kenny and Mitch didn't. Mason was willing to throw the ball down the field and let whatever happened happen. And he didn't turn the ball over either. He had a pretty good 3 games, and now he's a backup in Tennessee. But, I can't – it's indescribable. And really going back even before Canada, it's been a long time. I mean, Todd Haley-ish, you're getting that kind of feeling, but you're getting the feeling that people like Arthur Smith. They didn't like Todd Haley. I mean, this is, I can't think of a offensive coordinator that we liked since Bruce Arians. So this is great stuff. I'm really excited.
Here's my take on Arthur Smith's new offense. I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's good. It's nice and all. I'm not fully sold because right now, when it comes to a new offensive coordinator coming to a team, yes, the playbook and everything, the schemes, it looks different, it looks new, and it's fresh to the players. Now, the question is, how will they react when they play a real game? What if the defense don't give them what they want to do? In other words, if plan A doesn't work, does Arthur Smith have a plan B? And that was one of the things Matt Canada did not have. And that was something that a lot of people was raising nine kinds of hell over it.
Because Matt Canada didn't have a plan A.
The plan A. And Todd Haley, I think he was more stubborn than Matt Canada, but he was more effective than Matt Canada. Looking at these stats right here for Arthur Smith, in 2019, overall his overall offense ranked 11th. And then 2020, it moved up to 7th overall, thanks to Derrick Henry. So the question is, can Pittsburgh get that? We'll say top 15 ranked offense. Can he get them that? And of course, it's going to be a lot of help, especially with Najee Harris, where he lost some weight. And so, like I said, I mean, I'm just waiting for this to happen, waiting for the season to start. But the jury's still out in my book. And again, I don't want to give Arthur Smith full praise yet. Yes, it looks good and all as far as the new schemes and everything, but this is OTAs. Go ahead.
One thing, Ray. It's not. Yes, I mean we have to see live action, the offense be effective, but I think we'd be remiss to mention, when did we ever see, even going back to Randy Fichtner? I mean, other than Ben occasionally praising Randy Fichtner, when have we ever seen effusive praise for the Steelers scheme in the 2020s? I mean, these guys are excited, and I don't think you can undersell. I mean, I really think the last 2 years, and this has hurt Najee especially, I don't think they believed a play was going to work. They would sit there in the huddle and look at it and go, "We're going to run that? Yeah. Okay." And the offensive lineman ends up in the backfield. Najee knows he's going to get hit 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And all of a sudden he starts dancing. Kenny Pickett, hey, I'm going to check it down because you know what? I either got Pickens going long or I got Deontay on a curl. Screw it. I'll just throw it to Najee or Jalen and see if they can get 5-10 yards. Or, okay, yeah, Deontay beat his guy. And I also think that's why, looking at it now, a guy like Deontay, who might have resisted the change, and maybe that's why they got rid of him. Maybe they looked at it and said, let's start blowing out the malcontents. Mitch, not a malcontent. He's just obviously lost confidence. Hopefully he regains it in Buffalo. Mitch is, from all accounts, a really good guy. So I don't wish him any ill will. I'm just glad he's not playing quarterback for the Steelers anymore. Mason, for all intents and purposes, no matter how we feel about him, I was never a fan of Mason. Just to put it out there, but I don't think he was a bad guy. I just didn't think he was a very good quarterback. Was I a huge Kenny Pickett fan? I was always on the fence about Kenny. I didn't like the idea of drafting him, but once we drafted him, I saw him live in his first preseason game or his second preseason game in Jacksonville. His second game, the road game. And you could just tell on the sidelines how guys reacted to him, but they killed that. This is guys reacting to the offensive coordinator, not the quarterback, which we're going to talk about the quarterbacks in a few minutes. But I don't know how Zach feels about it, but I really feel the difference. I'm so optimistic after, these initial reactions.
I like that you guys brought up the coordinators in the past, because the Bruce Arians and the Todd Haley's and all of them, for all of the contention that you heard about, for all the lack of relationship or bad relationships, we had good offenses then. I mean, last year I would have paid anything to have the Todd Haley issues that we had, or to have the Bruce, any of those issues, because you can't do both. You can't both be hated by your players and be bad at your job. You just can't. If your players are gonna, like everyone in New England said that playing for Belichick wasn't fun. It wasn't. You won a lot, but it wasn't fun. Canada wasn't either. So we cannot discount the effect this is going to have on the players. Because I am not a Kenny Pickett fan. I never was a Kenny Pickett fan. But you have to wonder the effect and the beatdown over the course of a season, a couple seasons. It has to be being under someone like Canada. And like you said, on Najee and Pickens, everyone last year was like, well, Pickens is immaturity issues on the sideline. I'm like, if I was a young player with a talent like Pickens had, and I knew my ceiling, and Matt Canada was my offensive coordinator, I would flip out on the sideline too. I understood it. I was not upset. I was upset at George Pickens for the lack of blocking thing. That's completely different. But for all I know, that could be a level of frustration. I don't believe we will ever know how good Kenny Pickett was because of Matt Canada. I don't think he ever had a massively high ceiling, but I just think he drove Kenny into the ground. Kenny needed to be nurtured from the beginning, because I don't know any other word to say this. He seemed kind of like a fragile quarterback. Like he had to have something a certain way. He had to be spoken to like this to make sure it would work. And if we would have had someone like Arthur Smith at the beginning, maybe it would have worked out. Maybe Kenny could have been coached into a reliable Tannehill-like quarterback, because Tannehill's not a superstar, but Tannehill did exactly what his team needed to, and those couple times they needed him to excel, he did. And that's what I see happening this season. I see Arthur Smith having the situations that he had before to succeed and succeeding again. Russell Wilson has the situation he had in Seattle. He's going to succeed again. All of it's pointing to the Steelers knew exactly what they were doing. And another reason I shouldn't be near a front office, because I was ready to panic at any Matt Canada thing. I was like, I don't care who comes in as long as it's not Matt Canada. I was just furious about the situation.
Amen, Zach. Amen. Anybody but Canada. Anybody.
Zach, here, you said something that really triggered me right here. You said Kenny Pickett needed to be nurtured. Now, I'm kind of undecided on that part. Why? Because keep in mind, and you have to ask yourself this question: was Ben nurtured? No. Ben was thrown into the fire.
Well,
Ben knew what to do. Okay, so, and the thing is, Steelers fans, we're still hung up on Ben Roethlisberger. We want that instant success like yesterday, and knowing that, again, and I've said it before in a few weeks ago, when Ben retired his last game in Kansas City at the playoff game, when he was walking the tunnel, the announcer said, next year is going to be rough for the Pittsburgh Steelers because of the new transition of the quarterback. So here comes Kenny Pickett. And the thing is, Kenny hasn't learned the Steeler way. Would have been nice if Ben would stick around and teach him. Yeah, it would be nice. No, definitely. However,
they didn't want him to.
Right, he didn't want to.
So
Ben didn't want to.
But to nurture,
I don't
know the nurture part, because again, as you look at the division, you look at Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. So it was kind of like one of those Kenny Pickett. You got to learn on the fly. You have to learn real quick. But what held him back also, we go back to again, Matt Canada and his screwed up playbook. So, with that being said, it's a new start, it's a new chapter in the Steelers organization with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So, and most of all, you have good mobile quarterbacks that can scramble out in the pocket, and if nobody's open, take off and run.
Well, just one thing before we talk about some of the other OTA stuff, right? Saying Ben wasn't nurtured is kind of, that's not true, because when he came into the game, I mean, let's face it, he was the third string quarterback before Charlie Batch got hurt. And then Charlie Batch got hurt, so Ben moved up to the second string. Then Tommy blows out his elbow against the Ravens, Tommy Maddox, and then Ben's in the game. But the big knock on Ben for the first couple of years of his career was Pittsburgh won't let him throw the ball more than 20, 25 times a game. And Bill Cowher did a great job of protecting him with the running game. So they did nurture him. Kenny didn't get that benefit because once Ben was gone, everybody knew what the offense was supposed to be. It was supposed to be handed to Najee and hope that Kenny can kind of do the Ben thing. But when you're handing it to Najee and he's getting hit 2 yards in the backfield and it's 2nd and 9, 3rd and 7, and now you got to throw the ball, he wasn't ready for that. Now, that being said, I don't know that he's ever going to be ready for that, but you got to nurture a young quarterback. CJ Stroud was nurtured in Houston. He had tremendous talent, but he was nurtured. They protected him. They made sure that they put him in position to make plays. And that's really what nurturing is for an NFL quarterback. It's not that, okay, hey, we're going to hold your hand and make you feel better about that interception you throw. No, it's, hey, we're going to scheme guys open. So when you make this throw, trust the play. And you know what? You do that a couple times. Brock Purdy's a perfect example. You trust the play. When you drop back a couple of times and you look where you're supposed to look, and guess what? That guy's open. Boom. It's an easy decision. Kenny Pickett was dropping back. Mitch Trubisky was dropping back. Mason Rudolph was dropping back. Nobody's open. They know the routes before I run them.
But Bob, think about this. Okay, yeah, you're right. But the thing is, if the defense doesn't let them get what they want, again, you got to go to plan B.
It's not that. Think back to Steve Smith from the NFL Network. He said this was a high school offense. These are you're playing against professionals.
Right.
If you run, I mean, we've all seen the memes, folks. If you run all streaks like you do on Madden every play or all curls, guess what? Professional defenses are going to shut that down. You have no scheme. You have no crossing routes. What do you think, Zach?
I completely agree with what frustrated me about Canada. It shows some shame. Nothing seemed to impact him. I don't know what positive thing. If I was running an NFL offense and during it, one of the defensive players said, "Oh yeah, we know what play they're about to call," I would crawl under a rock. I would quit at that point. I'm like, I shouldn't be in the NFL. And yet Matt Canada came out and he would make something about schemes or this or that. So I am so glad that we get to move past it. But what's going to happen later in the season is we're going to see the positive impact that happens when there is a relationship between the players, the offense, and the coordinator. And we haven't had that in so long. I welcome all of the stress that we had from the years we were competing for Super Bowls. I want that again. I welcome it. And that comes with being able to compete with elite teams. And we have a really good chance right now. I don't think it's just can we hang with them. I think if the offense works the way it's supposed to, and the players are in the roles that they're supposed to be in, and everyone just does their job, we're going to see a Steeler team that is going to surprise maybe even the Mark Maddens of the world.
We'll see. Time will tell. But again, we also have to factor in the schedule, and of course, in November, December. 6 of the last 8 games are divisional games. Guys, 2024 OTAs so far, it's buzzing right now. It is buzzing. Smiles are in the air. It's filled with positivity in in Pittsburgh. And guys, all I can say is, based on what we talked about, the new offense that Arthur Smith is presenting to them, my thing to you all is, will they? I mean, does this motivate them? Will this motivate them? Will this motivation carry into week one and so forth?
Before we start out, we've had a lot of positive stuff, but Bob, I want to pose one name to you so we can start out on a more of a negative path. Dan Moore.
Oh man, how upsetting is it that he comes out the first day of OTAs, and after the reporters gather around? So, hey Dan, have you been working on playing the right side? Are you ready to move if you have to? Nope. You had a whole off season. You knew you were probably going to get displaced at left tackle. They drafted Troy Fatano. I mean, the writing can't be any more on the wall. I'm sorry. He may be Ben Roethlisberger's favorite tackle, but he's certainly not mine. And the fact that Broderick needs to replace him. Although Broderick, to his credit, when they asked him the same question, he's like, hey, I don't care what side I play on as long as I play. The Steelers are better off with a road grading attitude guy like Broderick Jones on the left and a road grading attitude guy like Troy Fatano on the right. Dan Moore's off in La La Land. I mean, I know Caboli and some other people think he's going to get, I think Jerry Dulock said this too, that he's going to get some big free agent contract as a left tackle because he started for 4 years. Good. Let him go start somewhere else. I mean, let's hope it's Cleveland. Or Baltimore, so that we know TJ will run right through him, or Alex will run right through him. I mean, the only guy he can block is Myles Garrett, and if you believe PFF, he really didn't block Myles Garrett. It's just they threw the ball before they could get to him and ran away from him. So, who knows? But I don't know how you guys feel, but I was so aggravated when I heard Dan Moore say he's not ready to play the right side.
Zach, you go ahead.
Maybe feel like kind of the Cam situation. Like, I don't understand the tone deaf things that sometimes the players do. Like, these are the Pittsburgh Steelers. We are a loyal franchise, but if you give us a reason to not need you around, we are more than happy to take you up on that offer. And like we were saying with Cam Hayward, 35 years old, you say, why do you want an extension? All that. Dan Moore, why would you say that? Lie. What? Who's going to call you on it out there? Just lie and then make up for it later. Fake it till you make it. In what world? I was telling Bob earlier, in the NFL, if you're a tackle, you pretty much have two choices. You have to be an elite, unreplaceable star at your position, right or left, or you have to learn to play both sides. And Dan Moore is not an irreplaceable star. So in what world does he think he doesn't have to? It's not just a lack of awareness. That seems lazy to me. It's either stupid or lazy. I don't know which one it is, because either he doesn't look ahead to see that he needs to do it, or he doesn't believe he has to. And neither one is a good option for someone like Dan Moore.
And then just to contrast this real quick, Ray, and then just real quick, you look at a guy like Roman Wilson, who all the reports are, hey, like Alan Saunders was on the Joe Starkey show saying, hey, he looks really good running across the middle. He pops off the screen. He's after the OTAs saying, hey, look, this is a running offense and blocking is part of my game, and I'm excited to get out there and block. You contrast that with, well, but I can't play the right side. It's so frustrating.
Look, when Dan Moore was drafted by Pittsburgh, okay, yes, it was out of need. And throughout his years, he has sucked big time. When they drafted Broderick Jones, I guess somebody, in his camp said, you know what, Dan Moore, you need to pick it up. So he has picked it up some, but he's still below the standard. And so now he feels like, okay, I can't be replaced. So he has his mindset of, okay, he knows this is he's on his last leg. He's not going to run into a situation like Kevin Dotson, where we thought Kevin Dotson is done. Dotson goes to the Rams to get a big contract. Again, Dan Moore to me.
Well, one thing, Ray, about Kevin Dotson, they put him in back at his natural position. So,
but and that's great. But Bob, when it comes to Dan Moore, to me, he's just going through the motions. That's all. He's there for a paycheck. He's just trying to get trying to stay as long as he can to get a paycheck. I totally understand that. Does he fully understand the steal away? No, he does not.
You want to be careful about Steeler way because, under Omar Khan, I think that means something different now. And Dan Moore, does he understand the Steeler way? He played with Ben. He used to help Ben up off the ground. That's why Ben loves him so much. Doesn't matter that he got hit. He just loves that he helped him out. He's a nice guy. I'm sure he would stay in Pittsburgh for the next 10 years and say and do all the right things. That ain't the Steeler way anymore. Omar Khan remembered what the Steeler way is. It's winning playoff games and championships, and you can't do that if Dan Moore is your left tackle.
Well,
that's true. The way the Steeler way, that I'll agree with Bob that there is a Steeler way in Dan Moore. He understands what that means. The one way he does not follow the Steeler way, and I'll agree with Ray, is part of the Steeler way is understanding what role you play on the team. That's part of truly being a Pittsburgh Steeler, and Hines Ward, I believe, personified that from the moment he got there to the end. He knew what role he had to play. Even if it was the aging receiver, he played his role. Dan Moore does not play his role with this. So, Ray, that I will agree with you as far as that goes.
Yeah, because like I said, Dan Moore, to me, he's going through the motions again. And somebody on the coaching staff,
well,
they're going to have to have a set of grapefruits and just say, you know what, Fartanu, you on one end, Roger Jones, you on the other end, Dan Moore, you on the bench. Just do it.
I don't think. I think you're overselling his talent tremendously when you say he's going through the motions, like he's just out there winging it. No, he's playing the best he can play. That's the problem. It's not that he's going through the motions. It's that he's not that good. It's not that he's a bad guy. It's not. This is the NFL. It's not for long. He should have never been a starting left tackle in the NFL. And he's been a starting left tackle way too long. He is not. It is noticeable. He is not as talented. I mean, when PFF ranks tackles, I think he's been 64th, the last 2 seasons.
Bob,
he's just not that good.
Bob, the reason why we give Dan Moore so much flack is because, one, Dan Moore, he comes from the SEC. Come on, Texas A&M.
No, he doesn't. Well, yes, they do now. Texas, he wasn't. Yeah,
and the thing is, when it comes to that, the cream of the crop when it comes to college football. So you get the best of the best when it comes to conferences.
He was a fourth round tackle.
That's one sticking point. That's one sticking point to Dan Moore. When we look at it and say, okay, you are playing left tackle, you are to protect the quarterback's blind side, and you don't. You get blown off the ball. You get embarrassed. That's my knock on Dan Moore is, again, he sometimes misblocked assignments. He looks lost, and I think he's trying to hold out as long as he possibly can until he gets pushed out the door.
He's a fourth round draft pick. If we had picked a tackle in the 4th round the last 2 years, we wouldn't have gotten Broderick. We wouldn't have got a guy like Fatanu. Dan Moore for a 4th round draft pick. Duloc loves to make this point. Oh, well, we got a starting left tackle in the 4th round. No, you didn't. Just because he starts for you doesn't mean he's a starting left tackle in the NFL.
Agreed.
And that's the thing is, is he a good solid backup? Would you like to have him on your team as a backup? Yeah, sure. Could he occasionally fill in for 5 or 6 games? If you're down your franchise left tackle, sure, it's a nice luxury to have. But if he's your starter and you're going to draft a guy in the 1st round like we did Broderick, and then you're going to wait 8 games and then force out the guy you're paying $10 million a year instead of the swinging gate on the left side, not that Chooks wasn't a swinging gate on the right, but I mean, I don't get the love affair with Dan Moore. And it's one of the reasons why when they brought Arthur Smith in, as high as I am on Arthur Smith, I am scared to death that Pat Meyer will have too much input in this decision and somehow want to keep Dan Moore. I think they should have broomed Pat Meyer out the door and exploited the relationship that Arthur Smith has with Mike Munchak to try to bring him back.
I think so. Every time you talk bad about Dan Moore, it seems people throw back at you. Well, look how many games he started in the NFL. I'm like, that stop throwing random stats. I'm glad that he started multiple games. All that means is we didn't have a better option. Or I like what you said about if Omar Khan would have been doing what he did now when Dan Moore was, he wouldn't have drafted Dan Moore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dan Moore is an undersized guy. He's not that big. He's not that strong. And he doesn't seem to have the awareness and foresight that you need to be at this point in his career where a transition is needed. And but you use the word luxury, Bob. I'm not really sure that he's a luxury. I mean, even for a depth player, the depth players play multiple positions. I mean, you have McCormick, he can play across, like you have all these. If Dan Moore is really just a one side of the line guy, he's got to be a lot better than he is to be a backup. Because
Right.
even at a backup, it's the versatility that makes I don't see any positivity in that. It makes me very happy that we have Broderick and Fautano waiting. I do agree that it worries me that because they're like, oh well, experience or all that, Dan Moore's going to somehow end up there, and I don't know if our margin for error at the beginning of the season is enough that we can afford to do that. I don't like that we were toy with that. So that.
Yeah, we can't get off to a slow start with this schedule.
No. we have to win at least 6 of the first 9 games, at least 6. All right. So again, talking about the quarterback dynamic, we will talk about Justin Fields, and he has something to say. Here's a video.
I'm definitely, competing. I think, Russ knows that. We're competing against each other every day. Him being out there for me, that helps me getting better. Us pushing each other. So, I definitely don't have the mindset of me just sitting all year. So I'm coming in every day, giving it all I got, and pushing him to be his best, and he's pushing me to be my best each and every day. So appreciate that. I'm definitely competing.
I like to hear that.
Let's chop it up. Justin Fields sounds pretty positive. He sounds happy to be in Pittsburgh. Share your thoughts.
I'll jump in because I know Bob has a different view on this. I was one of the few people who actually was legitimately surprised by this. And I had to kind of think to myself why I was. Maybe it's the role player thing about the Steelers that I was talking about. That's how I truly thought Justin Fields was going to come in, not like, a humble little guy, like, oh, I'm going to sit on the bench. I know what I'm going to do. I expected him to come in, with the confidence, I know I'm a starter, but I know my role here. I'm ready to back up. I don't know why that's what I expected. And I like the fire that I saw from him. It didn't seem to be malicious. It didn't seem to be like he was out to get Russell. It was excitement. He feels the fresh start. He feels the possibility. He's already talked to Arthur Smith about the offense. He's excited about it. Him and Russell Wilson have been going back and forth. I like this more than what I expected from Justin Fields. And I know Bob, this didn't surprise Bob one bit though.
No, not at all. And I would echo what Mike Florio said on PFT and also on the PM team with Pony and Mueller. What did you expect him to say? I mean, is he supposed to say, I'm a good soldier, I'm just here to, and hopefully I'll get a chance at some point? No, he wants to compete. I don't think he stepped over the line at all with these comments. I think, and I know a lot has been made of, oh, well, it's a full-blown quarterback competition. No, it's not. Look, going back to Mark Caboli, we're talking about him a lot today. He was on the Joe Starkey show after the first day, and he had praise for Russell Wilson. He said he noticed the significant upgrade in arm talent on the field. He noticed how much Russell Wilson had command. And he basically said, look, unless Russell Wilson gets hurt, or, they start out just absolutely terrible, it's very unlikely Justin Fields gets on on the field as anything other than a package guy. And that's, for those of you who don't know, Russell Wilson, Mark Caboli was way out on him, just like I was, before they brought him in. He was all about Russell Wilson is washed up. He hasn't had a good year in 4 years. And now he sees him live on the practice field, one practice, and is like, oh, not only is he still pretty good, and maybe this is because of the mess they saw the last 2 years when they were watching practice, but not only is he pretty good, but he's pretty impressed. And now he's gone from, I don't see Russell Wilson giving up the starting job to Justin Fields. So, the fact that, Russ is now, okay, it seems like he's firmly in command of the job. It's more than a pole position. I don't think we should read too much into this idea of a quarterback competition. But if you're second string, I'm going to do everything I can to prove that I'm the better guy. So, again, if you're not doing that, you don't belong on an NFL team. Never mind be a former first-round draft pick and one of the few quarterbacks in the history of the NFL to rush for 1,000 yards.
Let me take this to
Caboli. Really quick, Ray, because he brought that up. I wanted to make sure. It wasn't that long ago. March 11th is when Caboli on The Athletic wrote, let's see, there was by signing Wilson, the Steelers are starting the process of finding a franchise quarterback all over again. A couple paragraphs later, he says this screams of being a one-year experiment. And then a couple of paragraphs later, even if Wilson does play well, he'll turn 36 in November. How much confidence do you have in any quarterback not named Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, or John Elway to win a Super Bowl at that age? So really quick turnaround. We're talking barely over 2 months since Caboli was pretty much saying that this is a one-year thing, that this is not and all of a sudden he's really high on that. So that really does grab my eye. I like that you brought that up, Bob. Go for it, Ray.
It's a tale of two Justin Fields. One, you have the Chicago Bears Justin Field, who sometimes he'll just sit back in the backfield like a sitting duck and wait till the line collapses, then he gets sacked, and sometimes he'll get out the pocket and run. Or do we have that Ohio State Justin Fields where he was just lighting it up? And I believe, going back to Arthur Smith and his playbook, does his playbook fit Justin Fields' scheme? I believe it does at this point, and I think that's why, one, Justin Fields sounds so positive about where he's at right now. He seemed pretty confident that he's here. And sure, I mean, I don't mind him, feeling like, he's a starter because, again, Russell Wilson's 35 years old. And, and again, I mean, like they say, you're one hit away from ending your career. You're one hit away. So why not make the most of it? Why not make it positive internally in Justin Fields? Say, you know what? I'm ready to take this team over and take it to the next level. I love Justin Fields and his way of thinking. That's great. But once he gets out there, he has to prove that he is ready to take the mantle. That's if he can do it.
Well, one thing, when you said Arthur Smith's playbook, one thing that I think people need to understand, and this is how damaged Matt Canada has made us as a fan base, is we think players have to adapt to the playbook. That's not true. A good offensive coordinator adapts his playbook to his players. And Matt Canada didn't do that. He said, you're going to run this and it's going to work. Well, it didn't work, coach. What are we going to do? Run it again? So Arthur Smith, he did this with Tannehill. I think he tried to do this with Desmond Ridder, but Ridder is, maybe he's just not that guy. I mean, we're going to find out. I mean, Atlanta sure doesn't think so. They signed Kirk Cousins for $1 zillion and drafted Michael Penix in the first round. So,
yeah, 4 year for $180 million. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's Smith was, hey, what do I have in Atlanta? I got a big wide receiver, Drake London, but he's kind of slow. So, I got a decent tight end with Kyle Pitts. I got a pretty good running back in Tyler Algier and then Bijan Robinson. So, he adapted what he was doing. And I think he did that in Tennessee too. Although in Tennessee, his adaptation was, I'm going to hand the ball to the big guy and let Derrick Henry go crazy. But I'm also going to build in, and this is where I really, going back to Arthur Smith for a second, I really love that his playbook makes sense. We run the ball in 12 personnel. We beat you down, and then we go play action or we boot out, and you are putting 9 men in the box, and now I got my quarterback on the outside, and I got a guy running free down the field. All he's got to do is complete the pass. Never saw that. For lack of a better word, Matt Canada was playing checkers. Arthur Smith is playing chess. And I think Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are two very interesting chess pieces. They're very different players at this point in their career. I mean, Broderick Jones kind of, after practice the other day was joking around. They asked him about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and he was like, yeah, they're two different guys. He said, we like both of them. We'll support both of them no matter who is the better one. But he said he was struck by how small Russell Wilson is. He's like, hey, do you need to do a 25-step drop to get a pass off? He's like, no, I could see. So, I mean, I think Smith will take advantage of that. Look, Russell Wilson was always best rolling out in Seattle, on the move. And he's got that big, nice, deep arm. He's not a just step back in the – and I think this is where Sean Payton maybe had some issues with him. He's not a 3-step drop, get rid of the ball guy. He's a deep drop, 5-7 steps, and chuck it down the field.
Okay, so here's my question for both of you. Are you happy with Arthur Smith's new offense? Yes or no?
Super. I can only base it off what I have heard and the kind of the feel. And I understand, off-season and preseason excitement, but this feels legitimate. This doesn't feel like hype. It doesn't feel like last season where we're trying to convince ourselves that Kenny Pickett is something he wasn't, and that we'll be able to. I remember last season I was on some podcasts and I kept talking about the Matt Canada of it all. Can this offense overcome the Matt Canada of it all? So we don't have to deal with that. Everything seems positive. I know we haven't seen anything that counts, but I love it so far.
So since you two are in agreement with the offense, how many points a game should the offense put up in the regular season, in your opinion? And I know this is kind of early too early to tell, but what would be a good number for you all as far as the number of points the offense put up in the game?
I don't think you can get caught up in points per game. I think it's about sustaining drives. If we have 3 sustained drives a half, and 6 for the game, we're going to score enough points. I mean, we're going to score somewhere between 17 and 24. I don't think we're turning into a 30-point-a-game offense. It'd be great if we did, but that's an awfully big leap to make in 1 year. It could happen, but I don't think so. I think what we'll see is sustained drives, keep the defense off the field, stop with the 3 and outs. 5 to 7 play drives where you punt from midfield are not necessarily a bad thing. We do want to score. We do want to see some big plays, but we also want to see just competent offense. Okay, hey, we picked up a couple first downs. We pinned them. They punted it back to us at the 50. We picked up a couple first downs. Boz kicks a field goal. Okay, now we kick off again. We stop them. We drive down. This time we get a touchdown. I think the big key is not so much, hey, we scored 4 touchdowns and we're averaging 24 or 28 points a game. I think it's more about, especially with an aging defense, can we get these guys a rest? Is the defense only playing 25 minutes a game? If we can go 35-25 as a split, I think we're going to win a lot of games.
And that's my point, because again, how many sustaining drives that we've seen last year to where, they'll march the ball down the field, they get into the end zone, and the only thing you get out of it is 3 points.
Yeah, you got to forget last year though. This is all new. This is all new. New
but
quarterbacks.
But if we're gonna forget about last year, then we can't mention about Matt Canada anymore.
Yeah, we're only talking about the difference of.
We have to adjust our expectations when it comes to points per game, because I know a lot of people might not. The Chiefs only averaged 21 points a game last year. That's the Chiefs. At the top of the NFL last year was the Dolphins at 29.9 points a game. So we don't we averaged just under 18 points a game. And for me, that's embarrassing. So we don't need to make a giant leap. We don't need to get to the Dolphins' upper echelon because the Dolphins rely on their offense to run their team. Our defense will run our football team. So we do not need to go out there and score the. Now, would I love 30 points a game? I wouldn't know what to do with that. I don't know, but I don't know the last time I saw a team as heavily invested in the defensive side of the football as we are suddenly become an offensive led team. That would be one of the rarities in the NFL, I would imagine. So I don't I we're just the Arthur Smith of it all. I know you can't mention the Canada, but just our Smith replacing Canada, that's worth a couple points per game. It seems like. The not having Kenny Pickett around is a couple points per game. It just all seems to be adding up to just a little. The offense didn't need to do much. It just needed to get out of its own way. So as long as it do that and a little more, we're fine.
And that's fine, Zach. But again, how many times has the Steelers placed the game in the defensive hands, where TJ Watt has to make a play or Minka has to make a play? You know, we've seen it time after time.
50 years.
You know, and so I know the Steelers organization had, you know, the rock is the defense. That's the rock, the foundation. Again, at some point in time, the offense has to say, you know what, defense, you know what, you've done this right here. You giving us the ball. You know, you got that forced fumble, that sack strip search and everything. Well, sack fumble, you know, or interception. Now, let us capitalize on it and put 6 on the board.
Yeah, but Ray, what you have to look at though is the Steelers have been relying on the defense since Chuck Noll took over in '69. I mean, it's been 50 plus years. What do? I mean, even at our very best offenses on Super Bowl teams, we weren't explosive. I mean, you could kind of make the argument with Bradshaw and Stallworth and Swan, but Ben, when he won his Super Bowls, there was no Antonio Brown. There was no, okay, hey, we're going to score 30 points a game. You knew if the game was close at the end, Ben would win it, but you didn't know that. Our most explosive offenses since the Super Bowl era began were the Killer Bees. What did we win? Nothing. We don't need an explosive offense. We need a complementary offense.
And that is fine. That is fine. Complementary, explosive, any way you want to label it. Anyway,
no, there's a huge difference. We were explosive with the Killer Bees, and we didn't win anything.
Okay,
they didn't win a thing. They went to one AFC championship game.
Explosive, the Killer Bees. Let's okay. What's the next closest?
We were a top 5 offense in the NFL.
That would be the Miami Dolphins. Okay, Miami Dolphins of last year. Okay, they put up points. What I'm saying is 24 points. 24 points. If the offense can put up 24 points and then kind of let the defense do the rest, sustain, win the ball games, drive home safely. That's my goal. You know,
but I think we got to think about what Ray Lewis told the Ravens in 2000, which is score a field goal, y'all win the game for you. That's what I want out of the Steelers. I like the offenses of the Killer Bees and all that, but I'm a defensive guy at heart. I feel that wins championships and football games. So I want the offense to contribute when they can and get out of their own way. To me,
I agree. I agree.
Turn the ball. Turnovers need to turn into points, and you need to have sustained drives. Let's just be honest. I mean, the Steelers are not. Arthur Smith is not going to go trot out here and start throwing the ball all over the field. Now, if they could pound the ball down the field, just the nature of the offense, it's going to be sustained. It's going to be a 10-play drive. It's
Ray, I do think you'll be happy this season. I like that you said sustained. I think you will be happy because the sustained that you haven't got over the last little while with Arthur Smith and with Najee Harris. I think this season you'll get to see that. You'll get to see more 10, 11 play drives. You'll get to see us actually taking clock off the at the end of the game. So what you haven't seen, the offense, you get to see it this year. That's what I really believe. I completely agree that the offense has been lacked any sustainability over the last while. But that I am willing to already say the offense, if they had to play a football game today, would have a more sustainable offense than we had in 2023.
That's what I want to see. That's just what I want to see. Guys, our
It's a
last
fun one to finish it out.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's a fun one to finish it out.
Yeah. Pickens versus JPJ. And I believe this is something that we all love to see in training camp. Zach, you got the video ready?
Yeah, well we'll attribute this to B-Wall, Brandon Wallace, Steeler Nation. 2023 training camp got this incredible video that showed a rookie Joey Porter Jr. going up against George Pickens. Doesn't get old. Doesn't get old watching that.
What a great play.
I love that play. Yeah, I love it.
Before we get any further, what we mean by the Pickens versus JPJ, we're not talking specifically about the matchup of them going up against each other. We're talking about when you talk about JPJ, I know me and Bob were talking about, for some reason there seems to be this assumption that we have a top 5 cornerback, we have a shutdown guy already, and yet when they go to Pickens, it's a prove it kind of thing. So it's more of a why one than the other kind of thing. So Bob, I don't know what you feel.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and there seems to be, and I don't necessarily disagree. There seems to be this movement in social media that Joey Porter Jr. is a shutdown corner, and he's going to make our defense better. Kind of like to have another guy on the other side, but the draft has come and gone. I know Zach has some stuff to say about that, but if we believe, Steeler fans, so deeply in Joey Porter Jr., why is there doubt about George Pickens? Because everything we've seen when they go head-to-head in practice, going back to last year when he was a rookie, George Pickens owns him. He demolishes him. It's not like, okay, Joey wins one, George wins one. Maybe it will be this summer. But it's George wins everything against Joey Porter Jr. So if Joey Porter is a top 5 corner, George Pickens is a top wide receiver. What's so hard to figure out? And I have an answer of why that is, but I'm curious to hear you guys first before I go into what I think it is. The reason why people love Porter and are down on Pickens.
Okay, the reason why for Pickens, Bob, is because we've seen this numerous times last season. If Pickens is not in the game early, he gets frustrated, he gets pissed off, and he doesn't run his routes. He takes off on plays. So that's his knock from being a one.
Hold on, Ray. We never saw Pickens not run a route. We saw him not block.
The one, I forgot what play it was. It was Mitch Trubisky through interceptions near the end zone, and all George Pickens could do was just kind of just bend over and kind of just put his head down and discuss. Because again, we've seen where in the latter part of last season, if you get George Pickens in the game earlier, he gets motivated, he stays alert and active, and he acts like he wants to participate and help win the ball game. That's the kicker right there. I know, my opinion, I know that Pickens is a one on the roster. There can't be anybody else because the other one just left, got traded to Carolina. Pickens is now the new one. The thing is, can Arthur Smith and his playbook, can they come up with something to keep George Pickens engaged and keep him in the game? That's the key. If you do, fine. Because again, because everybody know when the play goes to George Pickens, get ready. It's gonna be exciting.
I think it's a little unfair because we're trying to compare apples and oranges here. But there's one name which I can bring up that I can guarantee you is why we're talking about Pickens like this. And Antonio Brown burned us as a franchise and as fans more than we know. And whenever we see an inkling of a wide receiver starting to show anything other than the utmost maturity, something goes off in our brains. I truly believe where we're like, oh no, it's AB again. And we all start to get ready for this complete demise. And that's not the case in this situation. Just like on the other, I believe they're both having prove it seasons this season. I don't think Joey Porter Jr. is a top 5 shutdown corner yet, and I don't believe George Pickens is a top 5 starting NFL wide receiver. I do believe that we have been kind of spoiled a bit with wide receivers. Steelers draft wide receivers really, really well, and a lot of other teams. I remember the Detroit Lions of the 90s couldn't get wide receiver drafts right to save their lives. And we seemed to trip and fall into them half the time. So for a while, it seems like we were just picking the best one and rolling to the next. And yet, as cornerback, we've been lacking severely this lockdown corner type of guy. So I think because we were so spoiled at wide receiver, we kind of feel like we know a bit more, so we can judge the wide receivers more harshly. But we finally have a shutdown corner. No one say anything about our corner. That's kind of what I feel like this is. They are both young players. They are both talented. They both have high ceilings. But I think they're both at the exact same place in their progression. As far they both had to earn where they are, but I don't think it's necessarily a fair comparison between the two because they're more like a side by side kind of thing. But Bob, I will agree with you. Whenever they go head to head, Pickens has that uncanny ability to, no matter how tall the cornerback is or how much he can get that ball at the highest point at the exact moment he has to, and that you can't teach that. So that I'm excited to see these two continue side by side.
Yeah, and what I really think it is, and this boils down, and this is kind of, we've talked about this a little bit before. I've been rooting for the Steelers since, Super Bowl IX. That's kind of when I remember watching my first game. I was 8 at the time. So, and there was always this feeling. Now, I grew up all over the country. I didn't live in Pittsburgh, but I've been a Steeler fan for a long time. I was born there. But that being said, there was this feeling, if you're like outside of the area, that hey, we just love our guys. But there seems to be a real feeling in Pennsylvania that if you're Pitt or if you're Penn State, and Joey Porter is Penn State, that there's extra love for that guy. And they get caught up. And look, I live in Jacksonville and have for a long time in Florida. And down here, the one thing the Jaguars always did when they were really good was they made smart decisions not to go overboard getting Florida and Florida State guys. And remember, those are top 10 programs at the time when the Jaguars were good 20 years ago. Now, that being said, all those Penn State fans, they love Joey Porter. All those legacy fans, they love George Porter. Well, Pickens came from the SEC, and he's kind of a diva. And, we can just replace that guy. You can't just replace Pickens. Look at the rest of the guys on the roster. He was better than Deontay Johnson the last 2 years, and they didn't use him right. There's been guys from the SEC who come on Pittsburgh radio all the time and tell you it's a crime what you're doing to George Pickens' career under the last regime. Now, Arthur Smith has a unique weapon, a combat catch guy, very reminiscent of what he had with A.J. Brown. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. But I think part of this is, especially Pittsburgh fans, they get too caught up in this Pitt rival, or this guy came from Pitt, so we can't say anything bad about him. He's got to be our guy. This guy came from Penn State. We can't say anything bad about him. He's got to be our guy. Joey Porter is a guy. I'm glad we got it. But it's not Joey Porter is great, and the guy who beats him in every practice is terrible. It's just not. George Pickens is a diva. So is every good wide receiver in the NFL. Ray was talking about, oh, well, he sulks at the beginning of games if he don't get involved. Don't throw Justin Jefferson the ball for a half. Watch what happens. Don't throw some of these other. Ignore CD Lamb. Watch what happens. These guys all do the same thing. They walk over to the bench. Why aren't you throwing me the ball? They throw their helmet. A.J. Brown almost ran himself out of Philadelphia being so upset that Jalen Hurts wasn't throwing him the ball. And he's got a guy who's getting paid $30 million plus on the other side of him this year with Devontae Smith. Pickens doesn't have that. So any good wide receiver is a diva. Let's face it at this point, folks. It is what it is. They all grew up on Antonio Brown. That's who they want to be.
Well, yeah. Well, and you add Mike Wallace also, but I'm just saying.
Mike Wallace isn't a diva. He wasn't good enough. Antonio Brown was a great wide receiver, but he was a world-class, I don't want to say, he's a world-class idiot. That's there. I'll put it like that, because last time I said what I really thought of Antonio Brown, Twitter blew up on me saying, oh, you can't call him that. Maybe he has mental health problems. Okay, fine. He's an idiot.
What I think about with Joey Porter Jr., we're really overlooking the guy on the other side of him, because for the segment I started looking into Dante Jackson, just for a couple throwaway things stuff, and I just wanted to keep learning more about Dante Jackson. Number one, I don't know why people don't talk about it. They're both second-round picks. If you hear people talk about the comparison between Joey Porter Jr. and Dante Jackson, you'd assume Dante Jackson was a fifth-round pick that somehow made it onto a team. He was a team captain for the Panthers in 21 and 22. He's a very good player. And what I noticed, a lot of people said, well, the Achilles injury. I looked at his snap counts when he is going into injury and coming off. When he comes off of injury, he wants to hit the ground harder. He plays more and he plays better after he's been injured. It's that Adrian Peterson mentality that I can be better than I was before and I want to prove it. So we have a guy on a team of prove it people that is in a prove it situation. I guarantee he did not take kindly when he was traded from Carolina, because I didn't know how ingrained he was with the people in the city, and he was a team captain. That was a major trade away. That would have been like us trading away Joey Porter Jr. So that's the comparison. I know that Joey Porter Jr. is, early, but take Joey Porter Jr. in 4 years with a couple injuries. He's still Joey Porter Jr. that we would have been trading away. So as good as Joey Porter Jr. might be, we can't discount. He has a guy with much more experience, runs a 4.31. He's a fast guy that can do things that Joey Porter can't. So we need to be talking more about the complement that he has on the other side of him, and not just can Joey Porter shut down the side of the field. And before you jump in, Ray, at OTAs, they're flip-flopping them as far as sides of the field. So it's not going to be like Joey Porter's going to be on this side. They're making sure they can play both sides of the fields already in OTA. So I'm excited about that matchup. So do not overlook Dante Jackson.
Zach, you know what? I'm not going to dispute you on that. But when you mentioned Dante Jackson and defense, you gotta say TJ Watt and Cam Hayward first and foremost, because they're the face of the defense. Now, ask yourself, who's the face of the offense for the Steelers? It's wide open right now. And so, that's why, again, we spend a bunch of time talking about Arthur Smith, his playbook, how the offense feel about it and what they look forward to. Great. And I look forward to seeing Dante Jackson on the field and see how he can make an impact on the defense. I want to see that. Again, his experience will go a long way. And I believe his experience will rub off on somebody. It'll be a better impact than Patrick Peterson was last year. Because Pat P, I like him, but Pat P, I'm sorry, man, in the beginning of the season, you was running a trap, talking about this and that, blah, blah, blah on social media, and you're getting burnt tenfold. So, and that's something that, no team really wants. You don't want to give the opposing team any bulletin board material, because, again, it could blow up in your face when you run your mouth like that.
I like what you said, Ray. I don't know why I didn't think of it before. That I guess I feel like TJ is the face of the team more than just the defense. Because I agree with you. I think if you ask 50 different Steeler fans who the face of the offense is, you'd probably get 50 different answers.
Mhm.
So I would say TJ is more of a face of the Steelers than just the defense.
I would say
but that
Both. I say both.
well, face of the offense is no question is Russell Wilson. I mean, it is what it is. He's the quarterback. The starting quarterback is the face of the offense. Whether you think Najee and Jalen are more important to the offense, whether you think Pickens, whether you think the starting quarterback is your face, and until he's not the starting quarterback, Russell Wilson is the face of the offense.
that's a very good point.
Time will tell.
I think it's more of or he's got to. I hope the team feels that way because he's got to earn it a bit more. For me, I'm gonna have to see him play the games. But I do love. A lot of people are saying what the players love about Russell Wilson is he is going out of his way to be around the players. I don't know the last time I saw a picture of Russell Wilson out in Pittsburgh or an event where there weren't multiple Steelers around him.
Mm-hmm.
That matters. I never saw a thing about that with Kenny Pickett. I mean, not that I remember.
And I believe that's good for Russell Wilson because again, was he that type of team player in Denver? No. You know, from the moment Russell Wilson stepped foot in Denver territory, I mean, he drew some enemies. I mean, within the team.
That was his own fault, though. I mean, demanding his own office, his own lockers, kind of away from everybody else. He set himself above the team. He made a huge mistake doing that.
Right.
I don't think he would do it again, to his credit. But I don't think there's any way the Steelers would even think about bending to something like that.
And that's fine, Bob. But the thing is, because of to me, this is on Russell Wilson's side. I believe what Russell Wilson did in Denver, yeah, Pittsburgh's not going to let him do that. But the thing is, I'm sure he's coming into Pittsburgh being humble and say, okay, you know what? I'm 35 years old. I need my team around me. So let me connect outside of the stadium. That's good. I mean, he's off to a damn good start.
Well, there's been some chatter this week. I mean, especially, Andrew Filipponi and Chris Muller have been giving him a hard time. Hey, Braden Fajoko, was like, hey, can you follow me back on Instagram? And he was like, I haven't gotten it to you. He's given off a little bit of that air of, hey, I'm big timing. Now, big timing Fajoko, who was a practice squad player basically last year. Okay, but is he maybe going to do that with a guy like Calvin Austin or something like that? So, the jury's out on Wilson, but for better or for worse, he's the starting quarterback. And if he has at least learned to, like Zach said earlier, fake it until he makes it, then great. I'm all for that. I got no problem with if you're a little bit fake, but you show up on the field and gain your respect that way, I'm good with that. If you're fake to the point where your teammates want to fight you on the sideline, then I'm not good with that. And Russell Wilson, his center wanted to fight him last year on the field. Just one thing, too. Don't undersell the fact the Georgia guys love Justin Fields. For those of you who don't know, Justin Fields started his career at Georgia. He transferred to Ohio State from Georgia. Broderick Jones, George Pickens, Darnell Washington, those guys love him. And Broderick Jones was talking about how they were hanging out. So, which is good. The young guns may be bonding as long as they're good with Wilson and support him too, and there isn't a schism. I'm all for it. I love it because honestly, looking back at like Kenny Pickett, how much bonding was he really doing? How much bonding was Ben doing at the end of his career? I don't think a lot. So I love the fact that they're both trying to bond.
Yeah. Well, guys, there's our menu right there. We discussed. Good talk today, guys. Good talk today.
And next week, LeeAnn will be back with us.
All right.
She got a cold. She was stuck in the air conditioning vents at the Pittsburgh Steelers facilities trying to get back to us. So she has a small cold, but she'll get back.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think personally, I think it's because here's a new version of our merch. She hadn't gotten her merch shirt yet that we sent to her. So she didn't want to come on without the Steel City rings.
And, Ray, before you toss into the thing, I want to shout out to the Pittsburgh for getting the 2026 draft. We didn't talk about it much, but it was really cool. The mayor is hoping this is going to be a homecoming for all of the Steeler fans that departed in the late 70s and 80s. And the quote is, "Coming home is something that people have been wanting to do for a long time." He gave that today whenever it was announced that they got it. So exciting thing. Congratulations, Steelers in Pittsburgh.
Yes, congrats, Pittsburgh. All right, guys. That's it for today. That's it for this week. And we'll be back next week with some more good Steeler talk. Why we talk about Steelers? Because we love the Steelers and we hate the Ravens and the Browns.
Oh, God, I can't
Bengals
say
just got
mostly
it
the Browns.
Don't
Great
forget,
beat me to
share,
it.
subscribe. You got all of our usernames right there.
Absolutely.
Not that way. It's this way. That's...
There, that one.
We're getting better every week, so keep enjoying.
And folks, the website's coming soon, so you'll be able to get merch. We'll have some articles. There'll be links to our videos. So, we're hoping to roll that out early in June. Lots of exciting stuff coming from us.
All right. Guys, Bob, Zach, thank you very much for coming on. Let's do this again next week. Y'all take care, and we'll welcome back LeeAnn.
Absolutely.
All right.